Okay, so today we're going to be talking about digital art, specifically digital artists, and talking about exploring new artistic possibilities within digital art. We're going to be looking at two different artists today. We're going to start with Erik Johansson. So, Erik Johansson is a Swedish artist. He then moved to the Czech Republic, which is where all of his artwork is based out of. Erik Johansson started out, like most kids do, just drawing and painting. And at the age of 15, he got a digital camera and he really loved the immediacy of creating artwork. So instead of having to sit down and draw or paint something, he was able to just take a photo of it. But he did not want to be done there. So traditional photography replicates what we see. He wanted to take that a step further. So he used his camera, put everything onto a digital platform, and as we can see, we have definitely taken things a step further here, as these are not things we see in real life. This is not photography that replicates what we see in the real world. On the left, this image is from 2007. It's called Lazy Dog, and on the right, this one is called Above All. It's from 2019. So, a lot of the times when we think about artistic qualities that we find in traditional art, we sometimes don't translate that to digital art, but really they are just as important. So, one recurring thing within his artwork is surrealism, which is characterized by dreamlike visuals, the use of symbolism, and collage images. It's also unnatural or irrational juxtapositions and combinations. Very clear, even just in introducing his artwork, we see a lot of that already. Landscape photography shows spaces within the world, sometimes vast and unending, but other times microscopic. Landscape photographs typically capture the presence of nature, but can also focus on man made features or disturbances of landscapes. Within his work, we see a lot of landscapes being used as like the background or the foundation for his images. Hyperrealism is a contemporary style of art that uses extremely realistic detail to produce works that are difficult to differentiate from reality. So, although we know what's happening isn't really happening in his images and that these things can't really happen in the world, his images attempt to be convincing enough. So this image here we're going to start looking at is Arms Break, Vases Don't. It's from 2008. Obviously this is not one of his landscape pieces, but it definitely plays with that idea of something, an unnatural occurrence or an unnatural scenario. So he explores surrealism through photography and photo manipulation. He uses digital art to create new worlds and scenarios. His images become dreamlike or movie-like, so almost like something you would see in like a sci-fi movie or something. Realistic properties are not compromised here. This one really shows how there can be a craftsmanship element to digital art. So, a lot of times when we're building something, like in ceramics for example, craftsmanship is a really important element, and that's definitely still important with digital art. He definitely shows his mastery of his photo manipulation programs and such. And the primary apps he uses to do these are Photoshop, Lightroom, and then, of course, digital photography. So the process is that he uses is Erik combines multiple images to create his surrealist pieces. In this piece here, one of his most popular is called Full Moon Service from 2017. He explains how he individually captured pictures of the landscape, the moon, the car, and so on. So what he did is he used rice balls for the moons on the ground and then photoshopped them to have that moon-like texture. What's interesting about his artwork is that he doesn't use anything that's not his own. So everything that we see here is something from a photograph he's taken himself. So obviously an artwork like this takes a lot of time. There's a lot of different moons on the ground, obviously taken from a lot of different perspectives and probably at different times. So this is a piece that would probably take a lot of work, especially things like you see the person on the back on the ladder. All of these things are images that are overlapped of things that he's created himself. Here's some more of his works. Again, we're looking at those surrealist qualities. Top left is Free Breakers from 2015. Top right is Cumulus and Thunder, 2017. The bottom row, we see on the bottom left Lifetime, and then on the right Falling Asleep. And I think this one here definitely shows that dreamlike quality that he's trying to get within his artwork. and he does so very successfully. The next artist we're going to look at is Aaron Campbell. He is a digital artist from Vancouver, Canada. He does a lot of series artwork, so these first two that we're going to use to introduce him are from his series called The Midnight, which is actually a musical group that commissioned him to make these pieces. These pieces here have a very retro feel to them, and if we look on this image on the right, in the bottom left corner, there's actually a date and a timestamp on there, and obviously this was not from 1984, this was made in 2019, so his reasoning for doing this is he wants to create a context for his artwork, so obviously these have a very retro 80s vibe, and he definitely wants you to know that, so he puts those dates on there to kind of help set the context, how he kind of gives you a hint about how he wants you to perceive his artwork. So some words that we're going to associate with his work, and again, just as important as any other artwork we're going to see here in digital art. Pop art describes art that is stylized after elements of consumerism society and pop culture, such as advertisements, product design, and comic books. The reason that we're going to associate this with Aaron is because a lot of his artwork is tied to a brand. A lot of his art is commissioned artwork. So for example, even in those first two we looked at, those were commissioned by a musical group who asked him to make art that was associated with their music. Aesthetic often is used to describe a particular taste or approach to the visual qualities of an object, a place, or a design. His aesthetic is very clear, and what I mean by that is that his artwork is very, very much you're able to differentiate between his work and another artist, which is really important, especially in digital art. Things can become redundant, so that unique quality is really important, and Aaron has created his own aesthetic in order to do that. Theme is an idea that recurs or pervades a work of art or literature. Aaron Campbell he's very conservative when it comes to talking about what programs he uses for his artwork. He likes to leave a lot of that stuff a mystery because he creates such a vast variety of artwork. He requires so many different programs. So a lot of the times one piece of artwork that he does doesn't necessarily have the information about what he used to create that. Most notably, he uses Illustrator, InDesign, After Effects, Photoshop, and basically all the other Adobe programs. He explores the creation of brand new worlds, and he creates them completely from scratch. So in this image used as the background here, all of this is completely his own. There's no stock photos, anything like that. This is all completely from his own imagination and from his own creation. He's drawn all of this himself, whether it be by hand or on a digital platform. He uses digital art to make scenarios reminiscent of movies, animations, and video games. Some of his artwork even does end up as animations, but that's not his primary role as an artist. His images are fun and playful, but the artistic quality is definitely not compromised. The dreamlike elements and colorful scenery, all within the artist's imagination. So the process that he uses, digital art requires the same amount of preparation and planning as any other kind of art, and even an artist as skilled as Aaron Campbell starts out with paper and pencil. So here he actually has this image. This is from his website. He's actually showed us a little bit of the process of how he gets from start to finish with his artwork. On the left here, this is one of his first sketches where he started this project. In the middle, obviously one of his ideas for where he was going with it. And on the right, we see the final piece. And this actually also ties into when we talked about pop art. This is called Coming to America, and it's from 2019. It was released in 2020 by Nike Basketball. He was commissioned by Victory Digital Studios and obviously created the artwork himself. And this is when Nike was releasing a new shoe based on the athlete Giannis Antetokounmpo, which is Greek. Sorry if I said that wrong. And he was commissioned to make this by Nike. This is one of those advertisements tying into the pop art world, and it kind of shows how he entered the world of advertising. And this is another example of some of his artwork in a series of artwork that's tied to his commissioned work and tied to consumerism. And when he talks about his own work, he talks about how he likes to start by conceptualizing and sketching ideas. but he also wants to honor the original source of his inspiration, but also make it his own, which he definitely accomplished here, and you can definitely see why Nike would commission somebody as individual as Aaron to do something like this for them. Here's some of his additional works. These are very different from his advertisement. It's important to look at, when an artist does do stuff with advertising, it's really important to also look at their individual work. That way we really see their artistic identity. It's probably a lot different from the work that they're being paid to do. So I thought these were some good examples to show he's definitely created his own worlds here. So on the top, we see on the left Solace from 2019 and Hideout. And on the bottom, this one is called Upstream, and this one is also from 2019. And again, these are worlds that he creates all from himself, all from his own imagination. Starts with pen and paper, puts them on a digital platform, and creates a completely new world.